On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Oliver Hardy, the rotund and affable half of the iconic comedy duo Laurel and Hardy, died on August 7, 1957 at the age of 65. His death, the result of a series of strokes that left him incapacitated in his final years, was natural, yet emotionally devastating for fans who had grown up laughing at his impeccable comedic timing and expressive charm. His passing marked more than just the end of a beloved entertainer. It signified the fading of a cinematic era that had once united audiences across the globe through the universal language of laughter. Hardy's decline began in the early 1950s, exacerbated by health complications related to his weight and smoking. After suffering a major stroke in 1956, he became bedridden, unable to speak or walk, a heartbreaking contrast to the energetic and mischievous persona he had embodied on screen. The silent suffering of his final months was a poignant reflection of the challenges faced by early Hollywood stars, many of whom were discarded or forgotten once the lights dimmed and the industry shifted toward newer trends and faces. The immediate consequence of Hardy's death was a surge of public nostalgia, though his health had kept him out of the spotlight for years. The announcement of his passing rekindled appreciation for his body of work with Stan Laurel. The comedy duo had created timeless routines that defined slapstick for generations, influencing everyone from Charlie Chaplin to modern comedians like Rowan Atkinson. Hardy's death prompted retrospectives, tributes, and renewed interest in the golden age of comedy, amplifying his legacy rather than dimming it. Hardy's death, much like the careers he and Laurel built, highlights how humor can transcend time, geography, and even mortality. It also underscores the fragility of fame in an industry driven by novelty. Yet the laughter he and his partner generated has proven enduring. They are remembered not through grand monuments, but through reels of black and white film that continue to bring joy to audiences worldwide. In memorializing figures like Oliver Hardy, we engage in an act of cultural preservation. Through restorations, biographies, film festivals, and online archives, we ensure that the laughter they sparked continues to echo. His passing reminds us that while the human body is fleeting, the emotions it evokes, especially joy, can live on far beyond the final curtain. Markie Post, best known for her role as public defender Christine Sullivan on the hit sitcom Night Court, passed away on August 7, 2021, at the age of 70 after a nearly 4-year battle with cancer. Her death, the result of natural causes stemming from this long illness, was both somber and poignant, marking the loss of a beloved figure from a golden era of television. It also reflected the silent courage many public figures exhibit when fighting private battles, especially in an age where celebrity often demands transparency. Post's career spanned decades and included notable appearances in both comedy and drama, from The Fall Guy in the 1980s to more recent appearances in Chicago PD and Scrubs. Yet it was Night Court, a show that merged offbeat humor with heartfelt humanity, that cemented her status as a television icon. Her character, intelligent, principled, and quietly fierce, mirrored the shifting expectations for women on screen during the late 20th century. In this way, her death served not only as a personal loss, but as a symbolic farewell to an era when network sitcoms played a major role in shaping American values and humor. The immediate response to her passing was a flood of tributes from co-stars, fans, and fellow actors, highlighting not just her talent, but her generosity and warmth behind the scenes. Her death did not radically shift the cultural or historical trajectory, but it did inspire reflection on the role of women in television and how actors like Post subtly reshaped audience perceptions with grace and consistency over time. Markie Post's passing underscores a broader truth about mortality and legacy, how people are remembered not only for the roles they played, but for the way they made others feel. She didn't court controversy or dominate tabloid headlines. Instead, she quietly became part of the fabric of American pop culture, immortalized in syndication and streaming libraries. We remember figures like Markie Post through reruns, fan conventions, retrospectives, and heartfelt performances that continue to inspire. In a world often consumed with fast fame, her enduring appeal reminds us that consistency, kindness, and craftsmanship are just as worthy of celebration. Her death may not have shaken the world, but it added another layer of reverence to the rich tapestry of entertainment history. Roger E. Mosley, best remembered for his iconic role as helicopter pilot Theodore T.C. Calvin on the 1980s hit series Magnum P.I., died on August 7, 2022, at the age of 83. His death was the result of injuries sustained in a car accident in Los Angeles a week earlier. Though tragic, his passing marked the conclusion of a long and impactful career defined not only by his acting, but by his steadfast commitment to portraying black characters with dignity and strength during a time when such representation was still a fight against stereotypes. Mosley's work came during a transformative era in American media. At a time when roles for African American actors were often limited or reductive, Mosley consciously chose to avoid parts that reinforced negative portrayals. His character T.C. was not just a sidekick or comic relief. He was a veteran, a business owner, and a loyal friend. Mosley reportedly insisted that T.C. be depicted as a role model, even refusing to let his character drink or use drugs. In doing so, he helped reshape expectations for black characters on mainstream television. His death, while not altering the trajectory of global history, resonated deeply within both the entertainment industry and the communities he represented. Fans and fellow actors mourned the loss of a man who quietly pushed boundaries, proving that strength and integrity could go hand in hand with stardom. For many, his passing was a moment to reflect on the slow but vital progress of inclusivity in Hollywood. Mosley's legacy lives on through the lens of television history and in the many performers he inspired. His refusal to compromise his values in pursuit of fame underscored a broader theme of personal agency and integrity in a racially fraught industry. In an era increasingly reflective of diversity and justice, his choices echo louder today. We honor figures like Roger E. Mosley not just through reruns and tributes, but by continuing to tell authentic, respectful stories about underrepresented communities. His life and death remind us that cultural change often comes from those who work steadily and deliberately, reshaping systems from within. In commemorating such lives, we gain a deeper understanding of the link between mortality, legacy, and the ever-evolving fight for representation. Peter Jennings, the longtime anchor of ABC's World News Tonight, passed away on August 7, 2005 at the age of 67 due to complications from lung cancer. His death was the end of an era in American broadcast journalism. Jennings had revealed his diagnosis publicly in April of that year, delivering the news to viewers in his signature calm and authoritative voice. A lifelong smoker who had quit for years before resuming after the events of 9/11, Jennings's illness brought renewed public attention to the dangers of tobacco use and the deeply human vulnerabilities even the most poised public figures face. Jennings's passing marked a poignant moment in American media history. Alongside Tom Brokaw and Dan Rather, he had formed the Big Three network news anchors, who shaped public understanding of world events for decades. His death didn't just leave a vacancy at the anchor desk. It symbolized the fading of an era when nightly network news was the nation's primary window to global affairs. His steady demeanor had been a source of comfort during crises like the Gulf War, 9/11, and countless elections. Without him, the media landscape felt less grounded, especially as it rapidly shifted toward 24-hour cable news and digital platforms. The timing of his death in the early 2000s also reflects larger cultural shifts. Jennings belonged to a generation of journalists defined by rigorous reporting, international experience, and a certain journalistic gravitas that stood in contrast to the emerging infotainment style of the new millennium. His Canadian roots and global outlook gave his reporting a worldly sensitivity, a quality increasingly rare in the era of sensational headlines. Jennings's legacy endures in the high standards he set for broadcast journalism. His calm, fact-driven approach and dedication to understanding global affairs made him a trusted voice across generations. Following his death, tributes poured in from world leaders, fellow journalists, and everyday viewers, all noting his humanity, integrity, and deep curiosity. In reflecting on Jennings's death, we are reminded of the transient yet powerful influence of media figures. Through archives, documentaries, and the ongoing work of journalists inspired by his example, Peter Jennings is immortalized not just as a news anchor, but as a symbol of what principled journalism can achieve in an ever-changing world. Jane Withers, one of Hollywood's most beloved child stars of the 1930s, passed away from natural causes on August 7, 2021, at the age of 95. Her death marked the end of a long and dynamic life that had spanned nearly a century of American entertainment history. Withers, who rose to fame during the Great Depression, became a symbol of resilience and cheerfulness for audiences struggling through economic hardship. Her effervescent screen presence and mischievous characters provided a contrast to the more demure Shirley Temple, offering a different model of girlhood that was bold, loud, and full of spunk. Her passing did not cause political shockwaves or shift global events, but it did trigger a wave of nostalgic remembrance. As a figure of early Hollywood, Withers represented an era when movies were both escape and instruction, teaching values like grit, kindness, and humor. Her transition from child star to character actress, and later her memorable appearances as Josephine the plumber in 1960s commercials, showed a performer who adapted gracefully to changing cultural landscapes. The era that shaped her fame was one of mass media consolidation and the rise of the studio system, where stars were crafted and promoted with precision. Yet Withers managed to maintain a genuine charm that endeared her to audiences and colleagues alike. Her eventual retreat from the spotlight mirrored a broader shift in how celebrity was understood, from the highly managed personas of the studio era to the more chaotic and invasive fame of modern times. In death, Withers reminded the world of a lost kind of stardom, one shaped by optimism and theatrical innocence. The tributes that followed her passing focused not just on her filmography, but on her kindness, her faith, and her lifelong enthusiasm for life and people. Unlike tragic child stars who faded young, Withers grew old with grace, her death not a scandal, but a celebration. Her legacy lives on through film archives, Hollywood retrospectives, and the memories of generations she entertained. In remembering Jane Withers, we glimpse humanity's longing to preserve innocence and joy in a world that often feels too cynical. She is immortalized not through tragedy, but through laughter, a reminder that cultural memory is not reserved only for the revolutionary, but also for those who made us smile. Brian James, best known for his role as the hauntingly memorable replicant Leon Kowalski in Blade Runner 1982, died unexpectedly on August 7, 1999, at the age of 54. His death, caused by a heart attack, was sudden and natural, occurring during what many considered a prolific phase of his career. James had carved out a niche as one of Hollywood's most distinctive character actors, frequently playing villains or eccentric figures in cult classics, action films, and science fiction tales that reflected the anxieties and energy of the late 20th century. James's death did not send shockwaves through global politics or culture, but it struck a chord within the film industry and among genre enthusiasts. He was emblematic of a certain era in Hollywood, one where character actors provided the grit, texture, and unpredictability that big-budget blockbusters often relied upon. His rugged face and gravelly voice became familiar across over 100 films, contributing to narratives that explored dystopia, authority, and rebellion, particularly in the Cold War and post-Watergate periods when distrust in systems permeated popular culture. In many ways, James's passing highlighted the undervalued role of the supporting actor, the ones who rarely receive top billing but are essential in grounding the worlds we escape into. His death reflected not just personal loss, but a broader cultural shift as Hollywood transitioned into the 2000s, increasingly dominated by digital effects and global franchises. The era that allowed actors like Brian James to flourish in gritty, mid-budget films was beginning to fade. Though not a household name, James left a legacy that lives on in the cult status of the films he appeared in. His performance in Blade Runner, a film that has grown in stature since its release, remains a defining moment in science fiction cinema. Through conventions, online fan communities, and retrospectives, his work continues to be rediscovered and celebrated, particularly as younger audiences revisit genre classics. James's death reminds us that cultural immortality often lies in contribution, not just in celebrity. His characters, flawed, volatile, human or not, live on in celluloid, echoing the era's fears and fascinations. In remembering Brian James, we confront our own relationship with identity, legacy, and the fleeting nature of time, both real and imagined. Joy Lansing, a radiant blonde starlet of Hollywood's golden era, passed away from breast cancer on August 7, 1972, at the age of 43. Her death was natural, but tragically premature, and occurred in an era when public discourse surrounding women's health, particularly cancer, was still limited and stigmatized. Despite her glamorous image and prolific career across film, television, and modeling, Lansing's passing did not generate major headlines, reflecting the fleeting nature of fame and the industry's tendency to marginalize aging or typecast actresses once their youthful allure faded. Lansing's career was emblematic of 1950s and early 1960s Hollywood, where beauty was often commodified and women were cast in narrow roles, most notably the dumb blonde stereotype popularized by stars like Marilyn Monroe. While she shared this visual persona, Lansing frequently fought for more nuanced roles and took pride in maintaining a wholesome image, refusing to pose nude or engage in overtly sexualized publicity stunts. Her untimely death from cancer underscored both the physical toll of relentless beauty standards and the limited medical understanding or support for women facing such diseases during that time. The immediate consequence of her passing was quiet. There was no national mourning, no mass retrospectives. Yet, in the years that followed, her name began to resurface in nostalgic discussions of mid-century cinema, where collectors, biographers, and fans began to appreciate the breadth of her career beyond her looks. Films like Touch of Evil and appearances on shows like The Beverly Hillbillies and The Adventures of Superman serve as testaments to her talent, even if she was rarely given the spotlight she deserved. In a broader context, Lansing's death reflects society's evolving conversation around celebrity, mortality, and how we choose to remember those who once captured our imagination. Her story speaks to the vulnerability behind the silver screen. How many stars suffered silently while upholding the illusion of perfection? It also reveals how memory can be reshaped over time, with overlooked figures eventually receiving recognition for their contributions. We immortalize figures like Joy Lansing not just through reruns and vintage magazines, but by reassessing history with a more compassionate, inclusive lens. In doing so, we better understand the human cost of fame and the enduring need to honor lives not only for their beauty, but for their resilience, dignity, and artistic spirit.